What's up guys, it's Manga time once again. I'm here to bring you my review of Bleach chapter 636, Sensitive Monster. And it's actually quite a clever title. At first I thought we were going to get something to do with Pernida's personality, but no, it's actually quite a clever title that comes into play later on in the chapter. But the chapter starts off with Pernida continuing to swell up, and the whole chapter is based around Kenpachi and Mayuri versus Pernida Parnkjas, the compulsory Sternritter. I don't know where this fight is going. That's something I'll get into. I'll get into that later on in the review, because I think I'd be very surprised if Pernida gets killed off, like already, but we'll see. Anyway, Pernida like inflates, and the black kind of capillaries that I pointed out at the end of last week's chapter, like they kind of fly outwards, and they do turn out to be very important actually. But it's kind of something I have a bit of an issue with. But again, I'll get into that a bit later. So Kenpachi's like, the head became huge, what the hell's going on? Mayuri says, it doesn't look useful for fighting, there must be a reason for this. There's a really good panel of the two of them looking at Pernida, and there's great background art going on. Once again, I think Kubo likes the Vandenreich buildings, that's why he draws them all the time. And then we find out that Ikkaku, Yumichika, and Nemo are actually there. No sign of Hanataro, which is a bit weird, but Ikkaku's like, oh, we lost the chance to jump in, and Yumichika's like, we don't have to jump in, if we do something wrong, they're going to get annoyed with us. And Nemu's like, yeah, I agree. And Ikkaku's like, I'm surprised that you're actually voicing your opinion on something, because she's basically a robot, essentially. But Nemu's like, Mayuri always orders me not to move until he has to call me in, and she's saying, I don't think Mayuri-sama is struggling so much against the enemy that he will need to call me. Ikkaku then says, what are you saying? It's exactly the same for Captain Zaraki. And that's some very obvious foreshadowing that Zaraki gets fucked up in this chapter, and I actually think the same applies to Mayuri. I think it's going to foreshadow that Mayuri's going to get messed up, and then the lieutenants will have to jump in, and probably won't end well for them either. I personally see both Mayuri and Kenpachi being incapacitated, and then Ikkaku, Yumichika, and Nemo step up, and they get destroyed as well, and then maybe someone else comes in. I'm not entirely certain, but I really think this is foreshadowing that. I think that scene is foreshadowing. Well, it's definitely foreshadowing Kenpachi, because it gets messed up in the next few pages. Anyway, suddenly Kenpachi's arm begins to go mental and starts twisting like crazy. And basically, Pernida's still breaking Kenpachi's arm. And this is a bit weird. At first I was like, this is cool, until I found out what Pernida's power was all about. And then it starts not making much sense to me. Because Pernida's ability has never done this before. Kenpachi's arm was already warped. Pernida's ability has never then made it go crazy and make it continue to be warped. It's really weird. And it does seem to just kind of allude to the fact that maybe Kubo has slightly changed Pernida's power since originally, but again, I'll get into that later. Because I think it is quite important. But anyway, yeah, they all watch the broken arm get bent even further, and this leads to one of the cooler sections of the chapter, where Kenpachi basically forces his arm in front of him while it's breaking. He then grabs it with his other arm and literally just rips it off, and it's like, Jesus Christ, you're crazy. But yeah, so he rips his arm off somehow, and then he tosses it on the floor, bearing in mind the warping arm is still holding onto his Zanpakuto at this point. He crushes his arm with his foot, rips the sword out of his hand, and as he pulls it out of his hand, two of his freaking fingers come with it somehow. I don't know, it's just like, Kubo was like, screw it, I'm going to go mental with the gore in this chapter, because it literally doesn't make any sense why Kenpachi's fingers would start coming off and everything like that, but, it's cool, I don't care. And then we see Kenpachi's arm literally just twists and then blows up into nothing. It's actually very reminiscent, in my opinion, of Baragon respiraring Soifon's arm, and then she had to get rid of it in time, and then it turns into a bone on the floor. Very reminiscent of that, I think. I tell you what, if the anime comes back, they're going to have a field day with Pernida's power, because the censorship is going to be real. But anyway, yeah, so Ikkaku looks on and he's like, the arm got folded up so much it just turned into a pool of blood. How does that even work? And I love that Kenpachi's completely unfazed that he's ripped his arm off. He's literally just standing there. But, whatever. And Mayuri actually, he praises Kenpachi a little bit. He's like, it's a good idea to rip your arm off, because you made that decision on the spot. You won't be turned into a mess, basically. And Kenpachi's like, I'm not sure whether you're praising or provoking me. And again, this is Pernida's power slightly changing, I think. Pernida, basically, we can compare it to Respira. Respirar latched onto the arm, and that was literally corroding the body. And if she hadn't gotten rid of her arm, it would have corroded her entire body. Pernida's power, in my opinion, has never, maybe I've just seen it wrong, but in my opinion, it's never been a corrosion ability. It was always Pernida targets a part of the body and it just snaps, basically. It warps. It's never been this idea that if something gets warped, everything else starts warping until your whole body starts warping. I've never personally seen it that way, but maybe that's how Kubo always was showing it, and I just haven't noticed properly. But yeah, basically they have a little bit of banter back and forth, and then Mayuri does Kenpachi says, what's his power? And Mayuri does the whole, I don't know whether you're asking me or talking to yourself, but, I don't know his power, but let's not get close to him because he's dangerous. And so Mayuri gets Nemu to tie up Kenpachi's arm and stop the blood loss. And, Kenpachi's like, how can we slash this thing if we can't even get close to it? And Mayuri's like, oh man, stop asking me these questions. Slashing's not the only way to fight. And then Kenpachi says, that time I was actually talking to myself. He's like, shut the hell up, Mayuri, basically. Which I thought was quite cool. And then Kenpachi rushes in, of course, because he never seems to learn anything about anything. But luckily, I'm very happy about this, though. He does get what's coming to him for being such an idiot. And I was really, really... Because I actually said last week that I think it'd be crazy if the captains managed to get out of this fight unharmed. Because Pernida's power is just so monstrously OP. And luckily, Kenpachi does get absolutely annihilated. He rushes towards Pernida, and he then slashes Pernida, manages to get Pernida right on the face, and the cloak collapses as it has done before, but Pernida warps Kenpachi's legs, which is crazy, man. So Kenpachi's literally standing there, and then suddenly his legs just go and like he collapses to the ground, and so now he's lost his arm and both his legs, and it's like, Christ. I'm glad this is happening though, because this is exactly what I wanted to happen. I wanted Pernida to, really go full on and actually just annihilate them, because it would be completely preposterous if they didn't, because Pernida's so overpowered. But yeah, anyway, Kenpachi's like, oh crap, he's actually starting to get hurt now. But suddenly he gets stabbed through the chest, and I was like, flipping hell. This is all... Stuff suddenly escalated very quickly. And it's actually Mayuri taking a very prudent decision to step in with his Ashisogi Jizo. And what he's basically done is he's paralysed Kenpachi to stop the warping. It's actually cool that we've seen Ashisogi Jizo twice in this arc now, which is nice because we never saw him once in the Arrancar arc, not the Shikai form anyway. So yeah, Kenpachi's being paralysed, and then Mayuri proceeds to use this ability we've never seen before called Ashisogi Jizo Fear Factor 4, where he sticks his thumb in the bloody Zanpakuto's eye until it bleeds, which is gross. But yeah, he does that, and then as he does it, Ashisogi Jizo screams, and its scream is an anaesthetic which knocks you out. According to Nema, you go deaf, and maybe that's because Ikkaku and Yumichika are weaker than Kenpachi, and so they can't be used on them. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, Kenpachi gets knocked out. And there's literally it's really weird though, because there's when he collapses to the ground, there's blood coming everywhere from him, it's coming out of his mouth, and it looks like it's coming out of his eye in one bit. But yeah, so Kenpachi's not in a good place right now, which is fine. Mayuri then draws his sword out of Kenpachi, and he's basically dealt with Kenpachi now. So he's paralysed him so he can't be warped, and he's knocked him out. So basically Mayuri then reveals that he's deduced what Pernida's power is. And it annoys me. It does annoy me that the Soul Society has managed to get so lucky as to send the one person who is perfectly capable of countering Pernida's power to the same place. The thing is, this is exactly how it was in the Arrancar arc as well. Mayuri happened to find Zale. Byakuya happened to get Zamari, and he happened to be super fast, and Senbon Zakura couldn't really be affected by the Brujeria. Kenpachi and Neutra, again, it's almost exactly the same. And so, the thing that makes this one a bit better is at least he sent Kenpachi to get messed up. So, at least someone gets completely screwed up. So it's not too bad. So, Mayuri says to Pernida, if Kenpachi got turned into meatballs, apparently, that would be a bit inconvenient. And then Mayuri reveals what Pernida's power is, and this is when things start to get a little bit weird for me. Mayuri says you're using your own nerves to infiltrate the enemy's bodies and forcibly control their movements. So basically what's happening is those black capillaries are Pernida's actual nerves, and they're going into people's bodies, and then Pernida, because, and it's actually quite clever, and I do quite like this power, because Quincy can pump reishi into the blood vessels, Bleach, Pernida's essentially doing the same thing. She's putting her nerves into someone else and then warping their body. But I have a couple of issues with this power, because it doesn't make sense with what we've seen of Pernida so far. Take, for example, when Pernida came up against Senjumaru, and Senjumaru summoned that huge soldier. How the hell did Pernida warp his entire body immediately? It was pretty much immediate. Literally, the monster lands on the floor, Gerard says something, and then Pernida does the whole whispering thing, and then the monster gets destroyed. And it's like, so how does that, and where are the nerves? That's another thing. Now the nerves are these huge black thick vine things. We never even saw them previously. And that really leads me to believe that Kubo couldn't think of a way to defeat Pernida's power, and so has changed it. Because another thing that doesn't make any sense is that Pernida definitely used to have to say something every time she used her ability. That's something we've all picked up on. When she tries to warp the big guy, you get the little speech bubble thing, and then it breaks. When she tries to warp Yoruichi, which wasn't even that long ago, she appears behind Yoruichi and then does the whole talking thing, and then Yoruichi's arm breaks. There's no sign of nerves. I think Pernida's original power was that she spoke, and it forced the object to do what she wanted, the compulsory. This is similar. She puts her nerves inside you, and it makes you do what she wants. But it's weaker, because her speaking, there's no real way of stopping that. Not so easily, anyway. And it hasn't got such an obvious weakness as exposing your own nerves. My only thing with this is, I think maybe this could be a red herring. And I'll talk about that again in a minute as well. So basically, Mayuri's like, I figured out your power, blah, blah, blah. And then Pernida sends her nerves towards Mayuri, which are now freaking huge. Like Pride out of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And Mayuri basically, what I think he does, we don't really know. I think he throws acid on them. Pernida's nerves are like about to grab him, but he covers them in acid, and Pernida starts screaming because of the pain. And Pernida's eye gets like the whole tendril things on it again, like it did when she hurt Yoruichi. So again, I think there might still be more to Pernida than just this. But Pernida's like, because the nerves are like burning. And Mayuri's like, it must be very hard having your own nerves exposed. Does it hurt? And he's like, I'm extremely interested in your power, and I'm going to explore this slowly, which makes me believe the fight's going to last a while. And Mayuri's like, I have tons of drugs that will work on your nerves. As he says this, however, Pernida doesn't seem to be going down just yet, because although injured, the cloak is now peeling apart where Kenpachi slashed it earlier. And all the nerves are kind of hanging out of her. And that's the end of the chapter. Kubo leaves the chapter on the tease of Pernida's cloak coming off finally. So it's a good chapter. It's a typical fighting chapter. I think it's interesting because Pernida's got a very interesting character design and a very interesting power. I loved that Kenpachi got annihilated because I really wanted to see that. But as I said last week, I really, really hope that Mayuri doesn't science his way out of this. I really hope so. It's really looking that way. I'm not going to judge it yet because the fight's clearly not over. Personally, what I think might happen, this might be me being optimistic, but I think Mayuri will think it's the nerves, and then suddenly Pernida will do the speaking thing and then warp him, because that'll be like Pernida's more stronger version of the ability or something like that, that all she has to do is just say something. So like the nerves are maybe because Kenpachi basically gave himself to her, she was like, I'm just going to use the nerves on this one, because it's easier. But then she'll whip out, by the way, I can just do this by speaking, and Mayuri will be like, fuck, and he'll get annihilated. I really hope that happens, but again, we'll have to see. As for what's underneath Pernida, well, it really is impossible to say, because Pernida's just so fucking weird. If we kind of put the clues together, it's hard. We've seen Pernida have a human hand once. It pokes out of the cloak and does that when she's talking. Other than that, though, we've never seen it. Again, I think, as I said before in one of my older videos, Pernida falls off the building in chapter 620, and Kubo makes a point of the fact that she can't move. And I think that might be because she is just a bundle of nerves, maybe with like human hands or something. Also in 599, when she first appeared in the story, there's a very big close-up of her face, and it appears that she's wearing something. You can't see her face, but you can see her eyes, and then there's like a toned outline of like a mask or something, like a respirator or something like that. So again, it's gonna be very interesting, I think, to see what Kubo actually shows us next week in terms of what Pernida's wearing and what Pernida actually looks like. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually very excited for that because Pernida's a very interesting character. Again, I just hope Mayuri doesn't science his way out of this. So I'm going to give this week's chapter a 3.5 out of 5, guys. I liked the artwork and the action that we got. Kenpachi getting annihilated was cool. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that Pernida's power might have been changed to make her more beatable. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. I'm definitely not imagining things, am I? Pernida definitely used to have to say something and it just happened. You know, the nerves were never shown or done anything like that, so... You know, I still think, however, that Nemu's words are foreshadowing that Mayuri's going to get beaten here, and then the lieutenants will step in, they'll also get beaten, and maybe Urahara will show up? I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. But, yeah, that's it for this week's review, guys. I like the fight, I'm interested in the enemy. Mayuri, don't get me wrong, I really like Mayuri. He's like one of my favourite captains, but I'm sick of him sciencing his way out of everything. Come on, Kubo. Kubo's massively biased towards Mayuri, that's the problem, because Mayuri's one of his favourite captains. Yeah, come on, Kubo. The thing is, Kubo's already stepping out of his comfort zone by having Kenpachi completely destroyed. So now do it again. You know, keep going. Make the arc more interesting. The arc will be more interesting, and there'll be more tension if the good guys get destroyed. That's the thing. It's not that I hate the good guys. I do like Van der Eyck a hell of a lot, but there will be more tension if the bad guys annihilate the good guys like they should be doing, because the elites are really powerful. So I was giving Kubo a thumbs up for Kenpachi getting destroyed, so we'll see where he goes next week. But that's it for this week, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this week's chapter. You know, are you liking the fight so far? Do you think Mayuri's going to science his way out of it, or do you think Pernida's going to crush him? So yeah, that's pretty much it, really. This was just a typical battle chapter. Let me know in the comments below. As always, guys, subscribe to my videos. I'd super appreciate the support. The button is like up here somewhere. And give the video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. That'd be great. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.